What's happening, everybody? I'm back. It's me, your resident supervillain, Mr. J. Washington, and you're here watching another installment of the One-on-One with the Supervillain series. And for those who, for some reason, may not know, but, got to give everybody the benefit of the doubt. This is where I sit down with members of my Supervillain squad on Patreon who support me at the $25 tier. We sit down for at minimum an hour and talk about whatever it is they want to talk about. And when I tell you these conversations have been phenomenal and I've enjoyed them, these have been some of the highlights of my week when I schedule these and I do these. And this one, I'm excited to do again. I talked to them before and we had a great discussion. I love talking to them because, again, we get in a discussion about wrestling, the nerd world, and so much. And I'm back talking to them. Jo Lene, how are you?
I'm pretty good. Yourself?
I'm good. So I had, like I was saying, before we started fully filming, I had some issues with the Spectrum technician because everyone knows about my internet. There's no secret, right? So I told the technician, they came to check the modem. They came to check the modem. And I was like, yeah, not just the speed thing. I was like, but like Monday through Friday from noon to about 4, it intermittently freezes.
Okay.
And so the technician literally just shrugged at me and was like, hey, we just don't have the bandwidth. We never prepared for all these people to be on. And it is what it is. We just don't have the bandwidth. We're trying to get more bandwidth. And I was like, yo, you just really was like, you stuck with it no matter what. I had, for a lot of people who were watching, I was normally doing these on StreamYard and they were freezing a lot on StreamYard. So I was like, let's try Zoom, even though y'all know Zoom is kind of terrible as a whole. But I've done two already through Zoom and they've been okay. So, it is what it is, with this Spectrum internet. So yeah, that's what I'm going through with that. But how have you been? How's everything been since we last talked?
As good as can be. Mentally, I'm still pretty good. So
I think that's the best thing anybody can ask for.
It's getting harder the closer we get to November. So
yeah, I can imagine, especially with what's on the line for many of the LGBTQ community.
Yeah, it's nerve-wracking, to say the least. It's just like,
I can only imagine. I feel like, Black people as a whole, we're going through this thing where we're still trying to fight for equality. And when the LGBTQ community they finally have it. It's like, look, we can be married, we can be treated like regular people, not second-class citizens. Or if I'm on my partner's insurance, I can be treated all this. And then this comes around and you start hearing justices on the Supreme Court talking about, yeah, we're going to do what we can to roll this stuff back. And you're like, wait, you're affecting millions of open members of the LGBTQ community's lives. And you don't care? Like, it's absurd.
Yeah. It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare in which our country is run by mostly old, out of touch white men, cis straight white men that are well past the concept of what's going on.
So as you can probably see, the things have changed in the look a little bit. I had to switch out of Zoom because of the internet, so I went back to StreamYard because I can do it on my phone. It's a thing. But one of the last things I was saying before we had to switch over was, there's a minimum age requirement to run for president, 35 years old, right? But I think there needs to be a maximum age allowance because we're so quick as a society to jump and allow 70-plus-year-old white men to run the country when that's not the country. Like, they don't have a broad understanding of what's the generation coming ahead of them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, they don't seem to care at all for the future. They only want to keep their status quo, it feels like, which, reminds me of another old white man in power that's close to something that's near and dear to you and me, I believe, in professional wrestling, and Vince McMahon.
Yes.
I'm like, I remember reading like the Twitter thread of stories of Vince McMahon when he had no idea what a burrito was, and I'm like, okay, I guess this makes sense compared to everything else that's happened over the years.
Oh my God. But yeah, it's so intriguing. And I do want to, if you're okay with it, because we started talking about this after we finished the last one-on-one,
Oh, sure, yeah.
and it's about you being a member of the LGBTQ community and currently going through transitioning. Um, I said it was interesting for me to learn because I have a few friends who transition and just they're going through it, and I've never had a chance to have a full discussion with them about the process, the mental state, and all these other things. So, if you will, because this is your time. If you
Yeah,
want to, you
I
can not.
will gladly talk, but I don't know how much I can talk about because, like I said, like I was planning to start this year, and
Mhm.
then like in February, and then like March happened, and the world shut down. So like
Right.
the hospital that I wanted to go to start making the start meeting with the doctors to get prescribed things, they shut down the program for like an indeterminate amount of time. Like I can talk about like what led me up to finally making this decision,
Please,
but like I
please
haven't
do. Please
yeah,
do.
so for a long time and again, this is a lot of like I've had conversations with some friends but like I don't know, like looking back currently, if the groundwork was always there, or if that's just me trying to fit pieces together. But like
Mhm.
I know over the past couple years, I would be watching stuff, and I'd see friends of mine that would post pictures of themselves transitioning, or like even just like photo manipulated, like Face App has the gender swap
Mhm.
thing. And
Right.
some coworkers a while back showed me like a gender swap version of me. I'm like, oh my god, I look so much cuter. And then like it was like a year plus where I would just like see pictures of women, and then like I don't know how long, but like eventually I said out loud just to myself, I was like, why can't I look like that? And I'm like, oh, oh, okay, this is more than I was just thinking about for all this time. So
Mhm.
I'm like, and then I'm thinking, well, you can like I have that ability, that ability exists now, and I so like that happened, I think winter of last year. So like, and that's like because uh in gaming I always preferred to like create female characters, and like people would always
Mhm.
question me at the time. I was like, well, I thought I was just a horny boy, but because I liked looking at them more than I like looking at a dude. But so and then like I started buying more women's clothes and preparing for all this stuff that eventually I wanted to do over the past year and this year too. But like the hospital that I wanted to go to that was like closest to me and that had a pride program, like they've been shut down, and now I think they are reopened, but I'm still
Mhm.
worried about going into public spaces because we're still in a pandemic. And
Yeah,
like
a
I
lot of people tend to forget that.
yeah, so like I know I should call and try to remake the appointment, but I'm like, the apprehension of going to a hospital of all places.
You know what? It's funny when you say that because a lot of people now are just learning that a hospital isn't necessarily the cleanest place.
Yeah, no, I mean,
Because
people go there when they're sick or injured for obvious
Mhm.
reasons. They provide health, but also like if like I'm in a waiting room and like even if they have like the strictest measures in place, there's still the possibility that like I could come in contact with somebody that was COVID positive, and I would never know, or I might never know unless
Right.
like the hospital informed me.
Well, I think the difference is with people who go in now with the assumption that they are COVID positive is they're already isolated in a certain section. They're
Mhm.
already put. They're not in the general population, if you will. They're already, hey, if you
Oh yeah,
think
yeah.
you COVID positive, you over in this area.
Mhm.
Like you want to make sure because you're not coming to the hospital if you think you COVID positive just to be on the safe side. You know what I'm saying?
Mm,
You're going to one of those locations in your area to take a free test and wait
yeah.
for between 30 minutes to 2 days for your results. But I think, but yeah, I understand that. But going back to it, it's very interesting to hear because this hasn't been, from what I'm gathering, this hasn't been a long process? Like you just said, this has been roughly a year. Just roughly a year.
Yeah, a year or more. Like I would always I think that's when like I definitively decided within the past year.
Okay.
And then like for a while I was like when I would learn more about non-binary, I'm like, oh yeah, that's me. I want to be this and this. And over like the past year, I've also I like over the year ago, I definitely adapted they them as my pronouns. And then just recently, I've also added she her because like when I hear people refer that to me, like I smile a little. So I was like, oh, okay,
Gotcha.
yeah,
So I mean, yeah, it is the thing where you want to be acknowledged and identified for who you are, and that's definitely a great thing. I've seen more and more acceptance of it within the past few years.
yeah,
There was always the pushback. Again, I will openly admit I was ignorant growing up to it because it all started for me more so with a friend of mine I grew up with, young guy. We grew up all together. It was a bunch of us, and his name was Scott, light-skinned dude, pretty light-skinned dude. We were like, yo, Scott can have any chick he wants because literally women were coming at him, but he never was really serious with them. And then we found out Scott was gay, and we were like, well, that kind of makes sense. But then again, at the same time, I'm like, but this motherfucker can have all, what I'm saying? I was thinking that.
yeah.
And it wasn't, it wasn't the just blatant ignorance of it. It was the like, yo, but you have these options. But again, not the options don't mean what you want. And so growing up also, I never thought about this till maybe a couple of years ago. My first introduction into trans people was probably when I was like 9, and my aunt had a friend named D. Now D was a male, but D would always say things like "I'm pregnant, girl," and all these different ways, and act, have more feminine personality. But again, it wasn't fully defined as we have it now, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Back then it was just say certain things, and so it's so interesting to me because we have to learn that trans people have always existed. Number one, one is B, trans men are men, trans women are women. That's something for me personally as well that I had to grasp because it was difficult.
Yeah,
because you hear this, and then you hear these things, and you hear people say it, and you hear it consistently, but then you see, and you're like, but they're like, no, you don't get it. And then there are people who can try, who I created people who have the patience to explain to people so they have a better understanding instead of just trying to bash them over the head with it. Like, you need to know. And it's like, you're kind of not helping in that case because what you're going to do is make them more resistant to it. And so I commend you first and foremost.
Yeah. Thank you. I remember when I first heard the term cis, and I didn't understand it either. For like cis male, cis female. And like I had conversations with friends, and then like I think it was at work one day, and I was thinking to myself like, well, why can't we just be like, why are we cis? Why aren't we just normal? Oh wait, like because if we're saying we're normal, we're saying the others are abnormal, and that's wrong. And that's when like I convinced myself, oh, that's why this is important to like for cisgender people to recognize that they are cisgender.
That one, I guess that one still to an extent has been a thing for me. And I see it a lot, again, definitely in the Black community, where a lot of, the Black community has always been rampant with homophobia. It's a thing. We all know it. It's never been a secret. It's always, oh, sweet ass boy, oh, fruity ass boy, or things like that. But when the terminologies started coming where, okay, you're trans, cool, or you're gay, cool, but then it's like, well, I'm straight. Yeah, and then people are like, well, you're cis. I'm like, no, I'm straight. Like, what's the difference? And it started for me for a second because the way people kept doing it, I was like, this is getting frustrating almost because it's like, I don't get what you're saying fully. And it's still a learning process and a learning curve. And I'm for myself, and I'm hoping anybody watching is catching on to that as well. It's just it's so much now, especially when we started the gender as a spectrum.
Yeah.
We started openly acknowledging that gender is a spectrum. And so it really, for me, like I said, I can only speak to me personally. I was like, wait, what? Huh? Because again, these are not the things you just knew growing up.
Yeah, like
you knew either some. Yeah.
And it all depends upon like how you're raised and where you're raised too. Like I didn't know most of this stuff like until like recent years. And the idea, like once I realized no, gender is a choice, like it made sense because my one friend that is trans male like got in a Twitter argument with a troll, and his point was like no, and like the other guy, the troll was like no, if you have a penis, you're a male. It's like oh, then my friend trolled him back. It's like oh, so if you get in an accident and you end up losing your genitalia, you're no longer a man. It's like no, gender is a choice. Like your genitalia does not define your gender.
That's a great example.
Yeah,
that's a damn good example. Like I mean, like you being honest, like there people have been God's been in accidents, and you lose your dick, and you're like, you still say you a man, even though you feel less than it. But it's also when it came to, again, I was one of those people for a while who I was like, yo, chromosomes say what you are, from XX and XY. And like those don't directly change.
Yeah.
And I had to learn more about that.
Yeah, there's a lot of science that I know gender is a social construct, is like widely considered that. Like I think even like if you look it up on Wikipedia, if you trust Wikipedia, I mean I trust it pretty well. It's got lots of sources cited, but like gender is considered a society, an idea of society. Sex is the other thing. Sex is not the same as gender. Sex, I believe, is what like determined by the biological functions, I guess. Again, I'm not an expert. I'm still very new to transitioning. Like I even haven't, but like, I looked up what I can because I was trying to figure out, well, what's my gender? Because I don't feel like this. Like this is not what I feel like. And when I realized, well, I want feminine traits, but I also want some masculine trait, like to keep some of my masculine traits. Like when I transition, I do not plan to have complete surgery. Like I just, I want to have feminine, like traditionally feminine appearance, but like, I do not plan on having surgery on my genitalia.
Okay.
But that might change in time. I don't know. That's how I feel currently.
Right. I mean, and that's the thing I think a lot of people forget, that it's actually I'm very glad you said that, because everybody hears off jump, well, I'm transitioning, like, oh, you just finna get your dick cut off. That's literally how they think. And for you to be open and to say, well, that's not the case. If I decide to go that path later, I will. But where I currently see myself as who I am, this is what I want to be and how I want to present myself. And you're schooling me a lot on a lot of things right now. Even though, like you said, you're not an expert, but again, it's helping me have a broader understanding, and that I've never had.
It's also confusing for me, like, because I'm on a lot of dating apps. But right now, nobody's meeting up, and I support. Do not go meet up in person. That's not do virtual dates.
You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised.
They shouldn't. But like, and how do I define myself to them, like in conversation? I'm like, oh well, I know I need somebody that's going to be attracted to femininity, but if like I don't know, like I'm like, look, I'm non-binary, feminine. I want to be feminine presenting. I'm not yet, but like I'm not completely one or the like. The closest I can think of is was it two-spirit? But it's a Native American term, which is why I don't like using it. Is two-spirit, like the one character that was in
the character from Lovecraft Country.
Yes, I'm like that. that's what I want to be like. But I'm like, I only ever see Two-Spirit referred to in Native American terms, so I'm not comfortable using it for myself because I am white.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Like, I don't know if there's another one for more than just, if there's another version of that, but
No, that makes absolute sense. That makes 100. And I'm glad you openly acknowledge that, because you have people who would not have. They would have just been like, yeah, I'm Two-Spirit. I know it's a Native American thing, but that's how I feel. And you're like, don't you get why they call it that, and you can't? And you have some people who push back against that. So
yeah,
it's
like
great you acknowledge that.
like I don't know if it's accepted or not, so I'm like, I don't feel comfortable, so I'm not going to. Like, I don't like
Makes
if I
sense.
meet, yeah. Well, that is that.
I mean, we can move forward, but I appreciate it because, again,
No
not
problem. No
only just
problem.
like I said, not only just myself, maybe somebody else who did not have a full understanding and wanted to learn more. And again, you may not, you don't consider yourself an expert and you haven't been through the full process, but to know where it starts also helps out a lot,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
we just hear about the end result, if you will,
Yeah.
and to know what the mindset going into this
Yeah.
is
I
a
mean,
good thing.
and things that I could possibly tie it in, but I don't know for sure, is I've always been more interested in female characters than male characters. Like, every time I see a Bond movie, I'm like, why isn't there a female Bond? Like, I mean, they tried some with Atomic Blonde, but there's never been the female Indiana Jones type. Like, Lara Croft came close, but that's also I want the action adventure heroine set in the 1930s, 40s, 50s, like a pulp adventure, but we're not getting those movies anyway. So
we're not getting those movies. I mean, it's a great thing, it's wishful thinking, but good well, they're like, yes, a 1930. Well, we sort of did get that. Let me rephrase that. We sort of did get that with Agent Carter.
yeah, that was a great show. I missed that show. I love that show.
Well, again, you
We
can
got
blame
2
Marvel.
seasons of it. Yeah, well, we got 2 seasons of that, and then how many Agents Shield, which I did not love, nowhere near as much.
Look, can we talk about this for a second? So I was on board with Agents of Shield its first season because of what it was.
Oh yeah, I was
Agents of
giving it that
Shield.
chance. I gave it
It
3
was that
seasons worth.
bridge. What'd you say? You gave it 3?
I gave it 3 seasons before giving up.
I think I did about 3 myself, because
Yeah.
it was the bridge TV show between movies.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, so when we don't have an MCU film coming out, this is the show that's letting us know that the world still exists, but how and to what level it exists. You're like, okay, cool. Then all of a sudden, they just were like, the hell with everything in the MCU. This is its own thing.
Well,
I'm like, wait, what?
yeah, because it felt like they were handcuffed. They were less important than the movies, and it was basically they knew that, but they weren't allowed to acknowledge it. And then they felt handcuffed. It's here's the crossover episode where a cameo or a line of dialogue references the big movie that's happening. Season 1 is entirely it's coming out when Winter Soldier comes out. So oh yeah, Shield's run by Hydra, so we have to shut down Shield. But I'm like, this is the premise of your show, that you are the top world, maybe espionage organization. You never really clarified that in the movies, like in the comics. And that's the thing. I go in thinking, all right, we're gonna get all the D and C list villains that are too minor for the big movies to deal with. We don't get any villains. We got Absorbing Man briefly.
I was just gonna say, we got Absorbing Man.
We got,
and that didn't really go anywhere.
And then one of my favorite moments where I in an argument with a friend, when I think it was Kyle MacLachlan. What was he? He was the Dr. Hyde, I think, in the show.
Yeah.
But he's going around and freeing all the Shield, the villains that Shield locked up. And there's one lady that just has razor blades stapled onto the end of her fingers, and her hands are trapped in these little metal tip gloves. I'm like, you could just get some bolt cutters and cut those things off. They are clearly not her fingers. You see them stapled into her thumb fingernails. And then this brings me up to like Jessica Jones season 1, the only season that exists, for me at least. It was a great season. I loved it. Then at the end,
Mhm.
spoiler for anyone that's watching and hasn't seen that old show that's over and dead,
Yeah.
she kills Purple Man at the end, which I'm like, why? Like, he's such a good villain. You could bring him back for other things. And then my
Probably because
friend's like,
they did. They ended up bringing him back for like small cameos, but I guess David Tennant's schedule wouldn't allow it.
well, even so, like writing from the writing aspect, like, and my friend, but the discussion with my friend is like, well, what could they do? He could just mind control his way out of it. Agent Carter season 2 came out around like the same time, and they have Doctor what's his name works for Hydra who just talks to people and basically mind controls them just by talking to them. I'm like, they locked him up in a prison cell with a trapped jaw. You telling me Shield can't do that to the Purple Man? Shield exists in that universe.
And they told you in Jessica Jones how to stop him, because remember, his father and mother worked on him. Was like, it's a virus, and you have to be within range of him for the virus to take effect of you. And it's like, put him in a plastic cell.
Yeah, and it's like, I still enjoyed a lot of the Netflix shows, but then it's like, all right, you got Marvel TV, you got Marvel Netflix, and Marvel movies, and never shall the three cross. Because I was looking forward to like.
The problem was, so here's the issue.
Oh yeah, like they're all different studios, right?
Well, yes and no. So Marvel Netflix referenced more of the MCU movies than anything, because the first seasons were all intertwined to the incident being the Avengers in New York.
Hammer Guy.
But then you have Marvel Netflix was still Marvel Television, which is a separate division. Was because they completely got rid of it. Marvel Television was a separate division from Marvel Studios. So when they ended up doing the Defenders in their individual series, and then you had Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which was along with that, then you get Cloak and Dagger and you get Runaways, which all fell under that umbrella. But at the same time, because Runaways nor Cloak and Dagger ever directly referenced anything in the MCU.
Yeah, no. I think they were stated to be separate universes, but like outside of themselves.
To the Netflix universes. But they were collected.
Oh yeah, that's right, because they mentioned Luke Cage characters.
Yeah, because Cloak and Dagger connected it to the Netflix one. So that's when it got real confusing.
Yeah.
And I think honestly, the best thing that Marvel did was like, yo, shut this down. We're just gonna handle TV from now on to make sure, which I'm cool with. I mean, on the other hand, that was a lot of jobs lost.
Yeah,
a lot of jobs.
And there were some good shows too. Like Cloak and Dagger was a great show. I really loved that show. Runaways, I enjoyed. I don't think it was as good as Cloak and Dagger because they never really ran away. But like that's because you're also like fans of the comics. So like it's not the comics. It can't be the comics. They don't have mutants. They're not allowed to reference mutants, so it can't be the comics. Like these two guys aren't time traveling villains because they wanted more believable, realistic. So
I mean, that's just as bad as like we think about this. In this past 10 minutes we've been talking about this, we forgot to talk about the one show that everybody tries to blank their mind of. The Inhumans.
Oh yeah. I watched the pilot. I never got past that. It's like, I'll give it a chance.
I think I did 4 episodes total. And I was like, oh, this just doesn't get better by any means. This just consistently gets worse. And then when they took Surrender Swan as Medusa, which had the worst wig in history, and they cut her hair episode 1.
Yep.
I was like, yo, you might as well kill her because there's no point.
It's like, I remember like discussions when the show was announced. It was like, man, the special effects for the hair have to be like so much because that's her thing. And like, it's got to look great. And then like it moves. I'm like, oh, these are bad. And then they cut it off. I'm like, oh, they just don't want to deal with this.
And it's like, so what's the point of having the character? It makes 0 sense to have a Medusa character with no hair because she's pointless.
Yeah. It's like that's your thing. That's the thing. I just feel bad for a lot of the people involved. Like, I'm not gonna blame anyone other than maybe writing. I don't know. But
No, I
like,
know who I blame. The showrunner, Scott Buck, who became the showrunner of the first season of Iron Fist.
oof. All right, that's fair. That's fair. It sounds like good person to blame. I didn't like that season either. I like season 2,
But that
but
but that's the problem with season 2 was it was under the guise of too little too late.
yeah, yeah. And like it had a fun cliffhanger ending. I'm like, what? Oh yeah, it's dead.
It's dead. Like you're
Yeah.
like, okay, so we got the pistols and we're doing all this, and then you're like, oh, that's so we're not getting no more? No,
No,
it's never happening again? No. Okay, cool.
yeah.
And that becomes the thing. It's so, you know what, like when Fox had the X-Men and then you had the Gifted, which was a pretty decent show. But I think the problem with the Gifted was they would always say this one thing that they would always say one phrase that they were like, yo, you just got to stop using. They would always say the X-Men. So
Yeah.
everybody was like,
So
where are they?
my problem with the Gifted is the premise of the Gifted is set up for failure. Like already the Mutant Registration Act has passed, and these people on the outskirts say, "No, we can't like win by playing politics." I'm like, that's the only way you can overturn a law is through politics. How do you
Right.
plan to enact any change? Like, if like it turns out to be you versus some other secret thing, sure, but like you can't change the law by these random attacks. I'm sorry, that's not how the law works.
I mean, I was thinking because I thought about it too when I was like, yo, the random attacks that you're doing don't help your case.
Nope.
They
Like
don't help your case at all.
it was a good show, had some good actors, but I'm like, you can't win. Like you cannot win with what you were doing. And
I mean,
but great
the
show, separate from everything. Legion, that show, nice 3
Legion.
seasons and done, right?
Let me tell you something. Legion was the show. Legion was one of the first shows after the X-Files that I realized in order to watch it, I had to literally watch it. I had to literally stay focused on the screen for the hour because if you missed any little small detail, that little small detail became a big important factor later on in the episodes. And
It's
so it made me be like, okay, I gotta
it's
watch it, but it was good. It was
it's
a
funny you
great for
say
me. It
that.
was a great.
Because I'm watching, like I told you last time, how I've restarted the Arrowverse stuff, but also I
Mhm.
started watching X-Files for the first time ever this year because plenty of time to have
See,
stuff in the background. Uh, I'm on to season 4 of X-Files, and that show's very good. Arrow, I'm on to season 4 of, and so
well, you already went through. Well, you already went through season 3, which was the Ra's al Ghul
yep.
stabbed on a mountaintop, and that was weird. And then
S-
season four had so much potential
yeah.
solely off the fact you have Neil McDonough
hmm
playing Damien Dark.
So
So much potential.
So here's the like it all started through a Discord conversation with a friend who lives in England. And we just started like talking about how much we both loved the whole Berlanti verse. Mostly because our shared love of Sarah Lance. That character is the best. We love her. And so she started rewatching. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna start rewatching too. And like we'll, make comments back and forth on like our just direct messages. It's been a lot of fun. And then we got up we're both around the same point because it's more fun when we're near each other. And we
Mhm.
got up to season 4 of Arrow, and like season 3, meh. Season 2 of Arrow, amazing. Season 1, we get it. You want to be Batman Begins, like that show. But season 4, up until the crossover episode, season 4, I like it way more the second time around than the first time around because I'm used to Damien
Fair.
Dark from Legends of Tomorrow and he's way
Yes,
campier
that
than I
makes
remember.
sense. That makes sense.
Yeah, like when he shows, like he only has
That
one
makes total
scene
sense.
in the crossover that crossover is not good. It is definitely the worst crossover. The when they introduce
That is
Hawkman.
is that the No, that's not the Dominators one.
It's when they it's when they
Which one was
introduce
that?
Vandal Savage. It's Vandal Savage and
That's what it was,
Hawkgirl
because
and
that was
Hawkman. But like it's like
that's because that would lead that fourth season is what lead us to Legends of Tomorrow.
yeah, and so it's funny like because Damien Dark has one scene in the whole thing, and he's about to kill people. Flash rushes in, takes everyone out of there, and Neil McDonough's like, "What was that?" And it's just like, oh, this is a man that enjoys being a villain. Like Damien Dark knows he's the villain, and he even says so in another episode. It's like, did you expect me to keep my word? I'm the bad guy. So I'm like, but like,
only somebody like Neil McDonough can deliver that, though.
yeah. But after finishing that crossover, I'm just like, oh, I really don't care about Arrow anymore. Like this season, the rest of the season, like Neil McDonough may be fun, but like I hate the Felicity Ollie relationship so much, and it just keeps getting worse. And I know what happens. Like I've seen the end of the series, and it's funny because that crossover sets up Legends of Tomorrow, but doesn't have any of the cast members that continued on through the majority of Legends of Tomorrow. It's like Sarah's not in,
except for Sarah.
She's not in it. She's not in that crossover.
She's not?
No, she disappears before that crossover, and it's so mind-boggling. Like Laurel's in it, but Sarah's not. Like it just has the Hawks, who are only in the first season, because Hawkman is not great.
Oh my God, the guy they had playing card. Oh my God, I gotta pull this up real quick because that was. Oh my God,
Like
it was just like, what?
He's just such a jerk, and also like you're not that engaging, and like I don't think they have that much chemistry, and one would hope they would if they're supposed to have an eternal love, but through constantly reincarnating. I'm like, you just feel nothing for each other.
You can see it was forced.
Yeah, and like I didn't know much about the woman that played Hawk Girl, other than she's Broadway. Yeah, I know she was a Broadway singer because she was in the off-Broadway version of Hunchback. I'm like, oh, maybe they'll do a musical episode, and they did, but long after she's gone, and she's not involved. So, but it's funny because like again, season 2 is the same time as season 4. Season 2 Flash, mostly good, better than I remember. Except for Barry constantly gaslighting his girlfriend Patty Spivot, who is the best new character, and then she just
doesn't last at all.
Yeah, and then I just found out like recently in an interview she did, like she was signed on for the whole season, but apparently like the guy the showrunner at the time that was outed for horrible, things.
Kreisberg.
Yes, she claims apparently he didn't like her, so like she was never brought back. And he doesn't work there anymore. But like, it's like and she said, I know I'm not the end game for the love between Barry because I'm familiar enough with the comics, but like she still could have been a fun character. But like once she was gone and Barry stopped gaslighting someone, he started being likable again. So the biggest problem is it's just a repeat. Zoom is just a repeat.
My biggest issue I had with the Flash was they were burning out all of the speedsters very fast.
In a 3 in a row.
Like, Flash's road gallery has way more than speedsters.
Oh, I know. Oh my God, I know. Like my friend and I had the same conversation. You could have had an entire season where the big bad was Captain Cold and all the rogues teamed together. Like they could have done their own like Masters Legion of Doom thing.
When they did Savitar in season 3, my initial thought was, you must not plan on this show. Well, season 4, I'm sorry.
No, he was 3.
He was 3.
Yeah.
Right? Because
they did Flash 3 speedsters in a row.
Yep, because it was Reverse Flash, Zoom, then Savitar. When they did Savitar, I was like, oh, you must not expect this show to last, because the last villain he should face in this show is himself.
Yeah, the God of Speed. Yeah. And I was like, I don't know who that is. I'm familiar with comics. He was a more recent one. I know that much, but
But it's just, I mean, when you have somebody who's your own worst enemy, yourself, right? That should have been later down the line. But it's like, did you hurry up and push that because you didn't think this might last? It's
Yeah.
one of those things. But then when they got the Thinker, I was like, yes,
Yeah, I love the Thinker
this
season. That
worked.
was fun.
The Thinker season was fun.
I even liked aspects of season 5, but not
With Cicada.
not Cicada part, the Thawne part. Like when it turns out like it's all a plot by Thawne to, escape death or whatever by sending Nora back.
Yeah, in the
I'm like,
future.
all right, like this is the good plot. Oh no, don't go back to Cicada. No,
The
why are you still
Cicada
going back to
part,
him? What was
I
Chris
hated the Cicada
Klein
because I just
doing?
hated Chris Klein's version.
His
I
voice is
hated Chris
so
Klein's version.
yeah.
I gotta kill the metas. You're like, why are we? Oh God, why are we doing this?
Yeah, it was
Like,
so weird choice. But we're excited. Like I'm excited because we're finally up to the start of Legends of Tomorrow, which is the show that we care about the most watching, because that was a mid-season debut during that period. And season 1, I know is
here's why I
hard.
love Legends the most.
It
The
don't
reason I
care.
love Legends the most, it doesn't care.
Exactly.
It doesn't care. It has no rules.
Yeah, it's so much
It
fun.
has no rules. It has no canon.
Yeah, like
Like, I'm good with it.
I love when they break the fourth wall because it's always like in the fun, subtle way. Like like even the trailer for like this past season is like, oh, crossover. Yeah, no, we skipped that this year.
Yeah, when he said that, we're like, we skipped the crossover this
It's
year.
like
I
yeah,
was like, and then I'm like, okay,
like Sarah's
go ahead.
saying, like, I told them they didn't have to be part of the crossover this time. Like during the last episode of the Crisis. She's like, yeah, I told them they didn't have to be part of the crossover this time. It's just like there's so much fun.
To call it a crossover, I think was the best part. Like to acknowledge what it was. Like, yeah, this is a crossover. I do.
Like Ray taking the
Legends is weird
selfie.
because, of course, you had the main three, which were Dominic Purcell, Brandon Routh, and Katie Lotz. And then for some reason, they felt the need to get rid of Brandon Routh, and it was like,
Yeah.
why?
I don't know either. Like, and like, they don't have any other character like his character. Like, he's just like, in Dungeons and Dragons terms, he is a lawful good paladin. Like, he just believes in doing the right thing, like above all else. He believes that there's good in everyone, and he's just gonna do the right thing. And he wants to be a superhero, and he's just like so earnest and charming. And like, we'll get rid of him. I'm like, why? He's so lovable.
I think that's the way. I think they're trying to push that on Nate Haywood. You know what I'm saying? They're trying to make Nate that type of character because that's literally what it seems like.
Maybe I don't know. Like I love Nate too because I love the nerd bro, the nerd buddies. Like the episode when
Oh
George
yeah,
Lucas quits film school is just so great. They just become idiots.
it just is so much like because they play with real history.
Mhm.
Like we're going to say we're getting on Obamacare. Like what? Like things like that. And the fact that they're still able to do it and have fun. Like I talk, I remember when I first got a chance to directly meet Guggenheim and I met a couple of the writers and they were talking about how it's just so much fun to write it because all you need is a particular event in history that's going to fall in line with whatever the arc of the story is.
Yeah, like
And so you can write the event and then you can change it, but it has to go in. It'll go back to normal.
yeah, like easily that's my favorite show in the Berlanti verse. Black Lightning, I think, is the best show in the Berlanti verse. But it's weird that it's now in the same universe because that is the most serious show because it's dealing with very pressing matters. But now that
Mhm.
it exists in the same world as Supergirl and the Flash, I'm like, you got a nukes coming at you. You have people you can call now. I saw you at the Hall of Justice. You know how to contact people now, Black Lightning. Like, and it's just like, how
So,
does this show exist in conjunction with the rest?
oh, you ready to know? You ready to find out?
I'm
So
yes.
here's the thing. So Salim Akil, who's the showrunner on it, never, never wanted Black Lightning to interact with the other characters.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
He wanted Black Lightning to He wanted Black Lightning to stay as he was. But then things changed and some things happened, and CW was like, he's in this crossover, whether you like it or not.
Mm.
Cool. So they did post crossover. Remember, they had maybe 1 or 2 episodes that acknowledged crisis happened, but still move forward.
Yep.
And going forward, I think, if I'm not mistaken, season 4 will kind of focus steadily on just the way Freeland was. Like now the occupation is over. You know what I'm saying? But their occupation is over. What was it?
Was it Gravedigger? Was that his name?
He's still alive. So that's
I remember. Yeah. I remember the end.
So Gravedigger still. So he could still be that that bad guy. Because again, Wayne Brady as a bad guy was something I never thought what it would be.
It was great. It was like the Chappelle Show sketch come to film.
Yep, it's the ASA. That's what it was, the ASA. And you have all that, and then like you technically, so Odell's dead in a sense. You have the ASA, which is still there, but it's not there, and it's like, what do you just got Gravedigger? So now you open up the storyline of what do you do? But again, like you said earlier, your world has changed now.
Yeah.
Technically speaking, once you put Black Lightning into that crossover, and with Crisis, the world as is known, Freeland still has its things to deal with, but the world as Freeland knows it has changed.
Yeah. Well, like, I figure, because I understand, you exist in a world with other heroes. Like in the comics, you can't always have the guest star, because this is the comic about Batman. So Superman's not always going to show up to help him out. One, because Batman's like too proud, but like specifically when Arrow had the spinoff of the Flash, and Arrow, Oliver was having trouble with I guess Ra's al Ghul. He could just call Barry at any moment, and like it would make sense. But like he's not going to, and that's what happens in a TV show. This is the show about Black Lightning. Like, so we're not going to have that. He's already got like a team of heroes to help him out too. But like, it's just like when you look at it from the meta point of view of like, if there's an occupation, I think Supergirl would probably be reporting on it. Like Kara Danvers might want to cover this, but again,
so here's what may happen with her.
TV show.
So here's what may happen with her.
I know
she's more than likely she's not going to her cousin's show. That's not going to happen.
Oh yeah, no,
she's not going to. Go ahead.
I figure if anything, she might like guest star in shows every now and then, but I don't know. I don't work in the industry.
She might, from what I'm being told, she might end up on Legends.
Oh, that'd be fun, but also like you are wildly overpowered. Like,
so it's, like, if she doesn't go, so that's the thing. If she doesn't go, then her sister will go.
Okay. Yeah, Alex would be a lot of fun because her and Sarah just had the one night stand, and like, but like they both have their own girlfriends, so.
Well, and then you got Ava on the ship too, so it'll be like that. So, because it's really, because that was the thing a lot, because this is his last season, and so a lot of people were like, "Well, what's going to happen with all these characters?" Because again, granted, the production budget for visual effects doesn't give us that much Martian Manhunter, as we have seen. We get very sporadic Martian Manhunter, and Dreamer. I don't know. Again, it's hard to have Dreamer and tell her story, because like, how do you fit her in when she's a brand new character? Whereas you got these established characters, first and foremost, you got to deal with. You see what I'm saying? Like, you got Alex Danvers, you got Kara, you got John Johns, you have all these, and then you can't just say, well, Dreamer comes in. It's like, you have to figure out where you put her.
Yeah.
She doesn't go to Central City would be kind of weird.
Yeah.
I mean, I could see it, given what the Flash is, but it's
It
gonna
would
be it's
like
interesting.
I mean they'd have to write it to make sense, but like it's possible, but she'd be giving up her life for and they'd need a reason why she gets transferred to Iris's newspaper, which doesn't seem like she could afford to pay for more people. But
Oh no, Iris is on a blog. She runs a blog
yeah,
with people
but
who
like
doing it for
the
who are
characters,
volunteering their time.
yeah, the characters I'd most want to be on Legends of Tomorrow are easily the Black Canaries, because nobody thinks that spinoff's going to happen. Green Arrow and the Birds of Prey. One, like I don't know
You
any
want to
fan
know?
that
You want to know something? Hey, people can think it because it's not. It's not happening.
like I would have been okay with it, but it's set in the future. And I'm sorry, when I think Birds of Prey, I want to see like the movie close enough.
Hmm.
But it was a great movie. I love it. But like they're dealing like I want to see them also interact with the other people of their time. Like you got Black Canary, just bring Black Canary onto the Wave Rider, and Sarah Lance dealing with her alternate Earth sister on a regular basis. That could be a
Would be
lot of
good
fun.
TV.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the problem is they try to push too hard with, which is there's nothing wrong with it. Let me preface this. They were like, we need to have a female-led show with all female heroes. It's like that's no problem, but you made a Green Arrow that nobody really cares about,
Yeah, I didn't know many.
and a lot of people ain't that many people fond of Dinah. You know, what I'm saying of Dinah Drake. Like
Yeah. Like because she
she
didn't
has
have
no,
much
just no,
personality or writing to her. Like you make Earth
but
2 Laurel was a lot of fun. Just make a Birds of Prey show. Don't call it Green Arrow and the Birds of Prey. Just make it Birds of Prey. You'll get some viewers based on probably just like stragglers from the movie.
probably not. They wouldn't be able to do it because Warner Brothers Film there's a lot of what a lot of people don't know is there are a lot of characters that all of the Arrowverse shows have wanted to use.
Oh,
And
I'm familiar, I think. I remember
yeah,
Willa
so
Ford openly talking about how annoyed people on the cast and crew were. It's like, hey, we built our own Suicide Squad. Suddenly, we had to kill Deathstroke or Deadshot.
yep, because they're like, we're gonna use them. We're gonna use it in a movie. And so
Yeah,
like you can't do it. That's the reason why they weren't gonna bring back Deathstroke. Because they
yeah.
were like, oh, we're gonna remember the whole Justice League thing, and then that is pretty much never gonna happen now.
And like, I mean, I'm pretty sure you're on the same page as me. Is like, movies and TV shows can exist at the same time, like they did previously. It's not
What
going to take away from currently COVID is taking away from sales, so that's not like that. Nobody expected that though. But like, I remember back in the days of Justice League and Justice League Unlimited, they were not allowed to use Batman villains because at the same time there was another cartoon called The Batman. So
the
like,
Batman, yeah.
yeah, and like the Batman was a fine show, but I had a grudge against it for years because of the Bat embargo, is what fans called it. But like, it's like why not? Like, it's not going to confuse people. Like children aren't that dumb. Like they're gonna watch both shows probably. Like I don't know. I'm not a studio
It
executive.
it's so I've had so many conversations with people who have been in those rooms and have fought for characters on shows, and it's like it's not even sometimes it's not even we're going to use them. It's we might use them.
It's yeah, because I remember
And that's what
Smallville.
holds up a lot of characters.
Yeah, Smallville. They brought in Booster Gold, and for years they were talking about doing like a Booster Gold and Blue Beetle thing, and like the one
They
fan
were supposed to be
casting.
doing supposed to be a Booster Gold movie, but I think Greg Berlanti has moved away from that as of now.
Yeah. So like the one fan casting that my friend said to me that I can never forget and will always talk about, like if they ever did a blue and gold movie, uh Keegan Michael Key and Jordan Peele as Booster Gold and Blue Beetle would be one of the best castings and race it would be so much fun because Keegan Michael Key as Booster Gold, like because he's the arrogant, over the top guy.
Yep.
Jordan Peele is
Yep.
like, he doesn't have to be the totally in shape, super smart inventor that's also kind of funny, mostly around his dumb friend. Like,
So what they're doing they already got Booster. They got Blue Beetle situated. What they're gonna do? They're doing the Jaime Reyes,
and Jaime is
and
great.
And it's gonna be in development for film. It's in development. So they're doing Jaime Reyes because they want to tell that story. Which I'm like, no problem. It's
a great story. Like, I read a lot of the comics, and I don't love when they take away the characters that like are introduced and I grow fondness for, like Jason Rush Firestorm. I was a big collected that entire series of like the new Fury of Firestorm. New 52 took away so many characters that people liked, and then like I miss like characters like I think he'll be in season 2 of Stargirl. I hope, but Jakeem Thunder, loved him. He was such a cool character.
So here was the thing that made me upset, because we're gonna wrap this up soon, because we can go for so long on this.
I know.
So
curse my trans
Stargirl. So Stargirl, they dropped Easter eggs throughout the season to set up everything. Remember, you saw the pin, and unless you understood what it was, you had no idea. So that's for season 2.
I know.
The one thing they did. Go ahead.
Well, also, what's his name? Mikey? He said, can I have my friend Jakeem over? And I'm like, oh.
Yeah, that was their Easter egg to it. Again, that's their, like, because again, Jeff Johns, no matter what people may think about him, and sometimes he's a dick, he knows the comics, and he knows the canon and the connections. And so, but also we forget the number one thing they showed us, which they should have never showed, was a lantern.
Yeah, but it's broken, right?
Should have never showed it.
Yeah, I mean,
well, because he said it doesn't have the ring. So that was the one thing. I understand it was part of the old JSA. I get it. But knowing, well, there may be a possibility Green Lantern Corps can apply to that. Well, not Green Lantern Corps, Green Lantern
the TV
can apply
series,
to that.
right?
The TV series. Because Green Lantern Corps is still happening.
Oh, they're different. Because I know they said in a recent press release, like they're having a show with all of the Green Lanterns. Like there'll be stories featuring Alan Scott, who's the original one, and like all of the others, I think. Which I'm like, oh, that's cool. I like a ensemble type show, or like an anthology type show where it's different story focused on different characters. But
well, if you paid attention, like for those who paid attention to the press release, they told you which lanterns they're using specifically to let you know which lanterns will be in the movie.
Oh, okay. So one of the, if you don't mind me saying, Stargirl related, love that show. But one of the things that I constantly get hung up on is the age of and time when things happened. Like Pat is the sidekick to original Starman, who worked alongside Dr. Midnight. But like when like Beth puts on the goggles and it says when Dr. Midnight was born was the 1920s, but apparently the JSA was killed 10 years ago in the canon of the show. So I'm like, wait, what? But also, where did his son come from? Who is his son? Because they never talk about Pat's life outside of I was striped.
No.
Then I met your mom. I'm like, where's?
Yep, that was it.
Like, I mean, if you're a widower, that's fine, but like, there's got to be some mention. Like, this kid never talks about his mom. All he does is show up, make jokes, and eat junk food. And then, he has that cool moment at the end where he just plows into the icicle.
I mean,
it's like, you murdered a dude, kid.
You murdered a dude because he's clearly dead, because you sat there and he was ice and you hit him with a truck and he shattered.
Yeah, that's like, it was a fun moment, but like, this child murdered man. I don't know how you deal with that. I feel like you should, but he was going to kill a lot of people, so justifiable, but it's awkward.
Right, it's justified beans. Who knows? But listen, we can keep. You already know we can keep going with these discussions. Yep. But I want to say, I always like to save more for the next go round. Thank you as always, more so for the support and everything what you've done and how you've been a great fan, friend, and follower. And I'm so appreciative and grateful for you, but also the information and the knowledge you've dropped throughout this, which for those who may be new to everything and don't understand it and are confused, now they have a better understanding. So I am very appreciative of you for that. So thank you.
Yeah. One thing more regarding transitioning, like
Mhm.
it might turn out like after I transition, I might I don't know. Things are not permanent. I know there's a podcast, I don't remember their name, but my friend was talking about it. It was a born cis male, transitioned, then he transitioned back to male. So like, because nothing is set, you never know.
Wow.
Yeah, and like they did a
That's
whole
interesting.
a podcast about their journey. So
Dang,
I wish I knew the name
interesting.
of it. So it may have been a book. I'm not sure.
I think it'll be easy to pretty much, Google it and find it out. But tell the people if they want to reach you and give you some, send some encouragement and thanks and everything, how they can.
Yeah, you could follow me or check me out on Twitter at JO_CRAK. You can see some of my like tests and makeup. I just did like it's a Catwoman inspired purple the other day, and then a She-Hulk green yesterday. So
Nice.
yeah, there was some
Nice.
role playing games I was playing those nights. So. But yeah, I
Dope,
just
dope. But
tweet
it's always
lots of pop culture stuff. So
ain't nothing wrong with that at all. Trust me. It's better than what most people constantly tweeting and arguing about all day, every day. So it's a refreshing break. And as always, you can find me Twitter, Instagram at Mr. J Washington. You know how it's spelled is down below. And please subscribe to the channel if you're watching this. And if you want to be included in the one-on-one series, just go over to my Patreon, patreon.com/Mr. J Washington. And we'll, sign up for the tier and everything. We'll set it up from there. Thank you guys so much. I will holler at you guys later. Till then, take care. I'm out. Bye.